This is Email, and I'm bothered, I'm upset, and we need to do something. These executive orders is outrageous. We need to go ahead and figure out where the shredder is at. So we ain't got the Ninja Turtles. We ain't got the FBI. We don't have the CIA. We don't have none of those 3 or 4 letters. All we have is a bird watcher and a person who wants change to happen. If you like change, help for democracy. Come join. Keep watch. Good morning, good afternoon, good
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whatever time it is, I hope you're having a good one. You're here with Email, and we're on Executive Order Day Watch 6. And we're going to be going over all of May's executive orders. So, the executive orders that we're going to be spotlighting is going to be Executive Order 14290, ending taxpayer subsidization of biased media. The next one will be the drug price one, which will be the 14297, which is dealing with drug prices. Those are going to be the two executive orders that will be spotlighted, and then there's going to be that we're going to be talking about. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into Day 6, Executive Order, May 2025. So when we talk about May of 2025 is going to be Executive Order 14290 to Executive Order 14303. Is not as many as it has been before. It's going to be Executive Order 144, which is Trump's 144th executive order for his 47th presidency. 14290, ending taxpayer subsidization of biased media, signed May 1st. This is about the media government spending. The impact level is a 4. Chills press freedom, affects public trust. So again, when we're talking, this is going to be something we're going to be case studying, so I'm not going to get too much into it. But when you are targeting the press, you're targeting us. Executive Order 145, which is going to be the actual Executive Order 14291, establishment of the Religious Liberty Commission. This was signed May 1st, 2025. The category is religious freedom. This is dealing with civil rights. The impact level is a 4. The risk of overreach favoring certain religions is very likely. Right now, currently in the Midwest, they are having some issues with the American Constitution being affected by having it being infringed with the Christian faith, which on the outside looks good, but on the inside, during practice, it leads to a lot of discrimination and a lot of buzzwords. That's something that I plan on getting into later on another workshop, but for right now, we're on executive order. So with that being said, let's go ahead and continue. Executive order executive order, Trump's 146 executive order 14292, improving the safety and security of biological research. This was signed May 5th, 2025. The category is science and biosecurity. The impact level is a 3, is subtle but affects pandemic preparedness. So if we were to actually go through and look at it by them, a lot of what is said from the outside is not what is in from the inside. When you actually look into that executive order, I'm pretty sure that a lot of the medical preparedness that we would be for actual medical emergencies is now being driven towards biological female male type of LGBT agenda that the average American like me is not even thinking about. That's something I wouldn't think about, but because we know that there is a war against the LGBT community, uh, and it's really a war against anybody who's not the 2%, it feels like. So let's go ahead and move on past that. So as Trump's 147th executive order 14293, regulatory relief to promote domestic production of critical medicines. This was signed May 5th, 2025. This deals with healthcare and industry regulations. Impact level is a 4 because it could change medicine pricing and availability. So with this one, when we talk about the procedures and productions of critical medicines, this is needed. And depending on the actions taken through this executive order, it would be good if we were dealing with an executive branch that had people's best interests at heart. So I would say that it's still on the outside. Again, what a lot of people do, they will label things as good, but on the inside be bad. So we're always going to look at things with a critical eye when we look at these type of executive orders. It's not that I'm being biased, it's just that I'm looking at the worst case. And once we look at the worst case, then we can go backwards and then look at the better. And I'm trying to look at both sides at the same time, which is very hard because when you deal with con men, all you can think about is the casinos getting robbed, the fact that this man can kill someone on Fifth Street and get away with it. So with that right there, it does give us a ear of urgency that's not normal. So let's go ahead and move on. Trump's 148th Executive Order 14294, fighting over criminalization in federal regulation. This is signed May 9th, 2025. This deals with justice and its deregulation, DOJ. The impact level is a 3, loosens protections, could reduce accountability. So when we think about the use of the DOJ, you have to think about their past actions. Do you feel safe? That will tell you. Trump's 149th Executive Order 14295, increasing efficiency at the Office of the Federal Register. Signed May 9th, 2025. The category will be government operations, and the impact levels of 1 is bureaucratic, is minor public impact. So this really impacts the federal workers more so than anybody else. So when we deal with the direct impact of us, it's a 1. But if you were looking to better the world as far as working in a career in the federal government, and you had good intentions as far as trying to protect the being part of the EPA and trying to protect that the environment, that's not good for us. And again, it's dealing with the accountability. The executive order Trump's 150th executive order 14296, keeping promises to veterans in establishing a national center for warrior independence. May 9th, 2025. This is dealing with the VA. The Impact is 4, positively affects veteran services if implemented equitably. If it's implemented inaccurately or somehow mismanaged, who knows? But from the outside, it does look like it is going to be more positive than good. To my understanding, California is really making a lot of headway on this one. So this is going to be ones that we're going to be spotlighting a little bit later. Trump's 151st executive order 14297, delivering most favored nation prescription drug pricing to American patients. This was signed May 12, 2025. This deals with healthcare and drug pricing. The impact is at a 5, very critical. Again, I believe that it was one of the senators that was in Iowa that had a person saying, you're gonna be killing people. And then she said something on the lines of, we're all gonna die. So because that is a lot of the Republicans' mind states, and it is a theory that I shouldn't say a lot of people, it is a theory that I have, that if somebody is willing to take $10 million, but they know 20 million people are going to die, you're a bad person if you know you're directly involved in that. Regardless on how you feel about generational wealth, regardless on how you feel about life, and I'm going to leave it like that. Trump's 152nd executive order 14298, modifying reciprocal tariff rates to reflect discussions with the People's Republic of China. Signed May 12, 2025. This is dealing with international trade tariffs. This is a direct impact of 3, and it affects consumer prices in supply chains. So with this right here, this is going to really be more than the 3 when you really think about the impact of anybody who is a consumer. If you like Temu or any of those any of those platforms that are reside in China, is going to affect them. True that a lot of them, the Chinese companies, have made it a point to build in America and had some kind of way to counteract. After a while, it's still going to be affected. It's still going to be affecting us down the line. Not right now. We're not going to feel it. We're going to feel some of it, but we're definitely going to feel it. And another thing that's going to happen is they're not going to start buying the farmers' product. And when they don't buy the farmers' product, even though I don't really like the drama queens right now, because they are, I would like to say, welfare queens. And again, I'm going to say the farmers are the real first original welfare queens. And if you want to get into that, we'll get into that later. Me and Thomas plan on getting into it. So executive order by Trump 153, his 153rd executive order 14299, deploying advanced nuclear reactor technologies for national security, signed May 23rd, 2025. This is a national security issue or alert, and it is a energy thing. The impacts from us directly is more of an indirect, so it's at a 2. Long-term tech development, meaning that it may produce fruit. I feel that when you think about Chernobyl and you think about all of the things that can happen with nuclear power, instead of going for the more EPA friendly ways of producing, we're going back to coal. What's next? We're going to start having people jump on treadmills to produce energy. I wouldn't mind doing that if I had just to work out, as far as, but I wouldn't recommend doing that for actually doing power to your house. Some of y'all people wouldn't even power your house for 30 minutes. let's face it, we're Americans. We don't work out like that. We're lazy. What we'd rather do on a Saturday, if we talk about going on a 5K or 10K, we'll laugh at you and say, hey, man, sure, I ain't got time for that, man. So the ideal of producing energy as far as like a treadmill or like hamsters and having humans do it, we wouldn't make it. It wouldn't last. I mean, a lot of us wouldn't. A lot of us would lose weight though. All right, so let's talk about the 154th executive order that Trump has written, and which will be Executive Order 14300, ordering the reform of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. This was signed May 23rd, 2025. This deals with energy and oversight. The threat level is a 3, impacts environmental and reactor safety. So it kind of piggybacks on what I was saying on Executive Order 14299, where essentially Chernobyl's possible. And when we deal with people who play loose, like especially if you're dealing with like if you're talking about boxers when they play loose, they get knocked out. If you play like Mayweather, you might last. I can't believe that I'm giving Mayweather credit, but hey, I'm not mad at Mayweather for ducking fights. All right, I am mad about him for ducking fights. But at the same time, I'm not mad at him because let's face it, if you were to actually lose, then his name would not make half $50 million. You know, so I do understand. $1 million a minute type stuff. That's crazy. All right, let's go ahead and talk about Trump's 155th executive order, which was Executive Order 14301, reforming nuclear reactor testing at the Department of Energy, same day. And this deals with science and national security. The impact level was a 3, limited public visibility, internal shift. So a lot of it should have been, so it already has, that department is already there. So when he talks about reforming, he's just making it a mandate, and for his head department of the Department of Energy and any other regulatory force that's involved in that to start implementing his own agenda when it comes to the nuclear front. The 156th executive order that he has signed, 100, which will be 14302, reinvigorating the nuclear industrial base. Same day, industry, national security. This is seen as a tool, stimulates sector growth, limited direct impact. At the same time, it does have a real impact when it comes to the EPA regulations. And we're now at his 157th executive order, 14303, restoring gold standard science, which was signed May 23rd, 2025. This was dealing with science and research standards. It was seen as a 4. It could change how government funds or trust science, how we trust science. So when you talk about restoring gold standard science, it's not the words that you have to consider. You have to consider what's actually inside of the executive order. Read in between the lines of what could be said and realize that that is what is actually being said. And this is a level 4 threat level because he is essentially going to be going for campuses like Harvard and all of the other big campuses that may not want to bend the knee to him. Harvard right now is losing millions, if not billions, of dollars because of this man and him withholding funds, refusing to allow Harvard to have international students is a big L for the American population. So you was wondering, what is our new player that has arrived? I'm gonna hold off on talking about our new player. All right, maybe I'm not. Here we go. Now I'm gonna hold off on talking about our new player. Instead, what we're gonna do what we're supposed to do and go into the executive orders that we're supposed to. So the executive orders that we're going to be looking at first would be 14290, which would be ending taxpayer subsidization of biased media. All right. By the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution, by Section 1 purpose, National Public Radio, NPR, and the Public Broadcasting Services, PBS, receive taxpayer funds through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, CBPB. Unlike in 1967, when CBPB was established, today the media landscape is filled with abundant, diverse, and innovative news options. Government funding of news media in the environment is not only outdated and unnecessary, but corrosive to the appearance of journalistic independence. At the very least, Americans have the right to expect that if the taxpayer dollars fund public broadcasting at all, they fund only fair, accurate, unbiased, and non-bipartisan news coverage. No media outlet has a constitutional right to taxpayer subsidies, and the government is entitled to determine which categories of activities to subsidize. The CBPB's governing statute reflects principles of impartiality. The CBB may not contribute to or otherwise support any political party. 47 USC 396 F3. C also ID 396 E3 E2. The CBPB fails to abide by these principles to the extent to subsidize NPR and PBS, which viewpoints NPR and PBS promote does not matter. What does matter is what neither entity presents a fair, accurate, or unbiased portrayal of current events to taxpayers, citizens. I therefore instruct the CBPB board of directors and board in all executive departments and agencies to cease federal funding for NPR and PBS. So this is a direct attack on it's a direct attack on NPR and PBS through the CBB. All right. That's something that's interesting. So let's get into section 2. Instructions to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. A, the CBPB board shall cease direct. Let me check something real quick. All right, just had to check something. All right, instructions to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. A, the CBB board shall cease direct funding to NPR and PBS, consistent with my administration policy to ensure that federal funding does not support biased and partisan news coverage. The CBB board shall cancel existing direct funding to the maximum extent allowed by law and shall decline to provide future funding. B, the CBB board shall cease indirect funding to NPR and PBS, including by ensuring that licenses and permits of public radio and television stations, as well as other recipients of CBB funds, do not use use federal funds for NPR in PBS. To effectuate this directive, the CBB board shall general provisions in, hold on, before June 30th, 2025, revise the 2025 television community service grants, general provisions and eligibility criteria in the 2025 radio community service grants, general provisions and eligibility criteria to prohibit direct or indirect funding of NPR and PBS to the extent permitted by the 2024 television community service grants, general provisions and eligibility criteria. The 2024 radio community service grants, general provisions and eligibility criteria in applicable law, the PCBB board shall also prohibit parties subject to these provisions from funding NPR or PBS after the date of this order. In addition, the CBB board shall take all other necessary steps to minimize or eliminate its indirect funding of NPR and PBS. So more directives to attack them, not just through funding, but also for those who are looking to fund. So it's like, we're going to attack you and your friends. That's what Section 2 is about. Section 3, instructions to other agencies. A, the heads of all agencies shall identify and terminate to the maximum extent consistent with applicable law any direct or indirect funding of NPR and PBS. B, after taking the actions specified in subsection A of this section, the heads of all agencies shall identify any remaining grants, contracts, or other funding instruments entered into with NPR or PBS and shall determine whether NPR and PBS are in compliance with the terms of those instruments. In the event of finding of non-compliance, the head of the relevant agency shall take appropriate steps under the terms of the instrument. C, the Secretary of Health and Human Services shall determine whether the public broadcasting service and National Public Radio or any successor organization are complying with the statutory mandate that no person shall be subjected to discrimination in employment on the grounds of race, color, religion, national origin, or sex. 47 USC 39715 and 39B. In the event of finding of noncompliance, the Secretary of Health and Human Services shall take appropriate corrective actions. Again, this is more of him employing more agencies that is ran by the federal government to attack CBS and NBR in PBS using the CPB. All right, so let's talk about section 4, severability. If any provision of this order or the application of any of the any agency, person, or circumstances is held to be invalid, the remainder of this order in the application of its provision to any other agency's, person, or circumstances shall not be affected here thereby. This is section 5 is something that is always said, so I just refuse to read it. So let's go ahead and talk about how this is not really good for us. All right. All right. Why does this not benefit the American people? Executive Order 14290, silencing independent voices, NPR and PBS are among the few major U.S. news outlets not driven by profit or bipartisan advertising, giving Americans access to fact-checked, long-form investigative journalism. Removing their federal funding risks silencing or weakening those outlets, especially in rural and underserved communities where public broadcasting is often the only reliable source of local and national news. So again, this is an attack going towards the rural and the places that don't have as much resources as the city. Red states, you're not going to make it. Number two, the bias targeting under the guise of neutrality. The executive order claims NPR and PBS are biased, but provides no formal mechanism to assess or define bias. It enables an administration to defund public media based solely on political perception, not on content analysis. This sets a dangerous precedent that media funding can be weaponized based on political loyalty rather than journalistic integrity. Again, what did Big Bird do? What did Big Bird do to you? And I kind of get kind of animated with that one because when I was protesting on, I think it was May 5th, it was one thing that was talking about Big Bird, and I didn't realize what the connection was. And I'm like, okay. Now I kind of see like what the beef is with it, because PBS again and NPR, they are more non-biased, and when you are getting funded by anybody, you have to take heed on how that person feels, because last thing you want to do is say, I'm not going to fund my own downfall. That's one thing people don't do. You're not going to fund your own downfall. So the third thing, undermines trust in government neutrality by instructing multiple federal agencies, including HHS, to scrutinize NPR and PBS under vague or unrelated criteria like employment compliance. The executive order functions as a political cudgel, not a governance tool. This aligns with broader patterns in Project 2025 to use the DOJ and other executive agencies to punish dissenting voices, eroding First Amendment protections and blurring the line between government and propaganda. So the main thing is using the DOJ and other executive agencies to punish those who dissent against King Trump. Number 4, threatens accountability. Public media often holds the government accountable, highlighting corruption, policy failures, and civic neglect. Removing their funding protects the government from scrutiny, especially under administrations that resist transparency or suppress opposition narratives. So this is something that we've been saying for the longest. The ability for us to resist this administration needs it takes a real big need for us to be vigilant when it comes to protecting our news sources. X used to be Twitter, and after Twitter was bought up by X was changed. It was certain things that was done that was very hypocritical. Elon Musk stated that you can now, humor is now legal again. And then as soon as you had some jokes on him, it was banned. A few of the accounts were banned, and a lot of other things were done. So it's like to me, it seems like a kid who just now has a boys club, or I really shouldn't say boys club, just has a club, and then they begin to, as the little boy or the little girl begins to win in their ways, they become more maniacal or more controlling, more like a CEO. All right, number 5, facilitates media consolidation and privatization. With public broadcasting diminished, corporate owned algorithm driven platforms will dominate the media landscape, shaping public opinion with profit, not truth, in mind. This reduces diversity of thought, especially for Americans who can't afford cable subscriptions or tech savvy alternatives. Again, when we talk about those rural areas, especially in those in the red states, they're going to suffer more than others. And when you get any kind of news source coming from anybody who has money that's invested in certain places and companies, they're going to make sure that their companies have the least regulatory restrictions on whatever they need to get done. And that is just human nature. All right. So, in summary, rather than protecting fairness, this executive order destroys a fair platform, gives partisan administration the tools to punish ideological non-alignment, and uses federal agencies to intimidate independent media. It's not just about cutting funding. It's about controlling the public narrative and removing watchdogs who ask uncomfortable questions. So that will be this concludes 14290. We're now going to be diving into 14297. This executive order is delivering most favored nation prescription drug pricing to American patients. And let's do this one just a little bit different. And I'm gonna see about using Speechify, and we're gonna test out the Speechify just for this one.
49. Federal Register, Vol L. 90 No. 93. Presidential Documents. May 15, 2025. Title 3. Executive Order 14,297 of May 12, 2025. The President delivering most favored nation prescription drug pricing to American patients. Cammond on DSK9W7S144PROD, with Presdoc for date September 11, 2014. By the authority vested in me as President by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered. Section 1. Purpose. The United States has less than 5% of the world's population, and yet funds around 3/4 of global pharmaceutical profits. This egregious imbalance is orchestrated through a purposeful scheme in which drug manufacturers deeply discount their products to access foreign markets and subsidize that decrease through enormously high prices in the United States. The United States has for too long turned its back on Americans, who unwittingly sponsor both drug manufacturers and other countries. These entities today rely on price markups on American consumers, generous public subsidies for research and development primarily through the National Institutes of Health, and robust public financing of prescription drug consumption through federal and state healthcare programs. Drug manufacturers, rather than seeking to equalize evident price discrimination, agree to other countries' demands for low prices, and simultaneously fight against the ability for public and private payers in the United States to negotiate the best prices for patients. The inflated prices in the United States fuel global innovation, while foreign health systems get a free ride. This abuse of Americans' generosity, who deserve low-cost pharmaceuticals on the same terms as other developed nations, must end. Americans will no longer be forced to pay almost 3 times more for the exact same medicines, often made in the exact same factories. As the largest purchaser of pharmaceuticals, Americans should get the best deal. SEC. 2. Policy. Americans should not be forced to subsidize low-cost prescription drugs and biologics in other developed countries and face overcharges for the same products in the United States. Americans must therefore have access to the most favored nation price for these products. My administration will take immediate steps to end global freeloading and, should drug manufacturers fail to offer American consumers the most favored nation lowest price, my administration will take additional aggressive action. SEC. 3. Addressing foreign nations' freeloading on American-financed innovation. The Secretary of Commerce and the United States Trade Representative shall take all necessary and appropriate action to ensure foreign countries are not engaged in any act, policy, or practice that may be unreasonable or discriminatory or that may impair United States national security, and that has the effect of forcing American patients to pay for a disproportionate amount of global pharmaceutical research and development, including by suppressing the price of pharmaceutical products below fair market value in foreign countries. SEC. 4. Enabling direct-to-consumer sales to American patients at the most favored nation price. To the extent consistent with law, the Secretary of Health and Human Services Secretary shall facilitate direct-to-consumer purchasing programs for pharmaceutical manufacturers that sell their products to American patients at the most favored nation price. May 14, 2025, JKT 215 Maya 0, 20,750 Federal Register, Cammond on DSK 9W7S144 PROD, SEC 5. Establishing most favored nation pricing. Within 30 days of the date of this order, the Secretary shall, in coordination with the Assistant to the President for Domestic Policy, the Administrator for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and other relevant executive department and agency officials, communicate most favored nation price targets to pharmaceutical manufacturers to bring prices for American patients in line with comparably developed nations. B. If, following the action described in subsection A of this section, significant progress towards most favored nation pricing for American patients is not delivered, to the extent consistent with law, I. The Secretary shall propose a rulemaking plan to impose most favored nation pricing. C. The Secretary shall consider certification to the Congress that importation under Section 804J of the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act (FDCA) will pose no additional risk to the public's health and safety, and result in a significant reduction in the cost of prescription drugs to the American consumer, and if the Secretary so certifies, then the Commissioner of Food and Drugs shall take action under Section 804J2B of the FDCA to describe circumstances under which waivers will be consistently granted to import prescription drugs on a case-by-case basis from developed nations with low-cost prescription drugs. 2. Following the report issued under Section 13 of Executive Order 14,270, lowering drug prices by once again putting Americans first, the Attorney General and the Chairman of the Federal Trade Commission shall, to the extent consistent with law, undertake enforcement action against any anti-competitive practices identified within such report, including through use of Sections 1 and 2 of the Sherman Antitrust Act and Section 5 of the Federal Trade Commission Act, as appropriate. IV. The Secretary of Commerce and the heads of other relevant agencies as necessary shall review and consider all necessary action regarding the export of pharmaceutical drugs or precursor material that may be fueling the global price discrimination. V. The Commissioner of Food and Drugs shall review and potentially modify or revoke approvals granted for drugs, for those drugs that may be unsafe, ineffective, or improperly marketed, and V. The heads of agencies shall take all action available, in coordination with the Assistant to the President for Domestic Policy, to address global freeloading and price discrimination against American patients. Seek 6. General provisions. A. Nothing in this order shall be construed to impair or otherwise.
All right. We don't read those. Just listening to what this is saying on its face sounds good. We're gonna lower prices. When you think about the prices that those other countries that are getting, their income is not as much as ours. They don't make as much. Like if you actually look at the current foreign exchange, normally if you are an American, you're winning when it comes to that foreign exchange. If we were to be this petty, I feel that we might compromise the American dollar's value. So that's just what I'm saying. But let's go ahead and talk about the 5 reasons why 14297 is bad. So why is the executive order more harm than help? One, weaponizing drug pricing as a political tool. While the executive order claims to lower drug costs, it puts an enormous pressure on pharmaceutical companies without offering a clear, enforceable mechanism. Instead of guaranteeing lower prices, it threatens enforcement actions and uses trade leverage in antitrust threats to strong arm both foreign and domestic entities. Actions that could backfire by disrupting supply chains or delaying access to new treatments. So it's really weaponization of the drug pricing that could be used. A lot of factors that is when it comes to a lot of the things that the economy is ran, it's like it should not be government. The government should not act like it's God and put its hands on every single facet of our life. That makes no sense. If in that case we are going to be living in a communistic type of reality after a while, if that is our standard. And the reason why I say is because those in power is always going to take away the valuables of those who are not. Number 2, no real enforcement mechanism for patient relief. Although it mentions direct to consumer sales at reduced prices, the executive order lacks clear logistics on how Americans would actually obtain these medications. There's no patient assistance program, insurance framework, or pricing formula, just political promises with enforcement focused on corporate punishment, not patient care. So this really follows suit with the fact that it's more of a weapon and not more of a help. If it's more of a help, it will be helping the patients more than looking to punish corporations that do not bend the knee. Number 3, expands executive control without oversight. And we always know oversight is needed. The executive office, the executive order empowers HHS, DOJ, FTC, and the U.S. Trade Representative to take aggressive unilateral actions, including rule changes, waivers, and import decisions, with little congressional input or public oversight. It positions the federal government to potentially punish companies or countries that are non-compliant, a tactic that mirrors authoritarian style economic coercion. Number 4, destabilizes global drug markets. By demanding lowest global prices, the executive orders risk provoking trade wars or causing companies to pull out of certain markets, which could increase prices abroad and spark international retaliation, rather than promoting collaboration to lower global drug costs. This executive order isolates the U.S. and could reduce access for everyone, including Americans. Number 5, chilling effect of innovation. U.S. biotech and pharma firms rely on stable regulatory markets and global pricing models. The executive orders unpredictability, threatening approval revocation, export bans, and retroactive price controls could discourage research and development investment, slow innovation, and stifle small biotech startups. And I know that it's a lot of really newscasters that are saying that it's going to be a lot of people that would have went into business that are not going to go into business, and that's going to hurt us. All right. In summary, this executive order sounds good on paper. Everyone wants cheaper prescriptions, but its approach is combative, vague, and potentially harmful. It focuses on blame and punishment than solutions, lacks a concrete mechanism for relief, and expands executive agencies' powers in a way that could be used for political retribution rather than public benefit. If implemented recklessly, it could weaponize trade and health policy, harm the very people it claims to help, and erode trust in U.S. drug safety and regulations. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about this new opponent, this new player that has now arrived. If y'all have been paying attention, you already know what it is, the big, beautiful bill. And I like to call it the privatizer. And the front of the cover is this right here. This is the front of our card. And the card type is a anti-hero of democracy. The affiliation is ultra conservative populism, backed by Project 2025. It first appeared January 2025 in Washington, D.C. The comparative threat level. When we talk about the democracy integrity is critical. That's the threat level is critical. It undermines constitutional balance. The next category that this card looks at would be civil liberty. And we have seen that it is severe. Attacks privacy, education, and dissent. The next category will be global reputation, which will be crumbling. And it is viewed as authoritarian shifts. And the next category will be long-term impact. This is generational. Risk of irreversible privatization. Once people get into power, people don't let power go. You have to take power. So therefore, we cannot let this power go. Right now, it lies with the people, but that is not what it always is. When we look at the back of this player card, we're going to be able to see the matrix that we're going to then compare the big, beautiful bill, Project 2025, Third Right, and other similarities. If you notice, the government service destruction is 90%. This is 5% more effective or destructive than Project 2025 was looking for, and it's 10% less destructive than the Third Right. When we talk about privatization, it's an overdrive. Its purpose is to be placed in overdrive. The objective is to privatize all of our government services. And we all know when government allows private companies to rule, private companies don't care if you eat or not. They don't care. You're not even part of the payroll. Why do I care about you? I'm just saying. Then when we talk about Project 2025, it was high. So this is even higher. This big, beautiful bill is even higher than Project 2025 was alluding to. And versus third right is nationalized economy, but private cronies. So it allowed people, it allowed the nation to be free as far as money. All right, so okay, so all right, so let's go ahead and go back to the government structure, service destruction. Reaganomics was rated at a 60%, and this big beautiful bill is rated at a 90%. So if you did not like Reaganomics, and all Reaganomics is another way of saying 1980s to 1988 during Reagan's term, that's all it is. The down trickle effect that he implemented, that is Reaganomics, and that was seen as a 60%. Remember, he's the reason why air traffic controlman to today is still suffering. Right now, they're working on floppy disks. Why do you think they're working with floppy disks? So that was seen as 60%, and the big beautiful bill is seen as 90. That's something that's very telling. I don't know what Sid Hill under Pinkett. I don't know what that is about, but that is something that I don't mind diving into later, but not now. When we talk about the civil service purge risk, the risk when it talk about the big beautiful destructive bill is extreme. When we talk about Project 2025 was high, and with the third right, it was dealing with the SS loyalty model. And if you are familiar with the SS, that was a level that was a level under the Gestapo, but they also had some other little SS. I'm not sure what the other S is, but yeah, they had like 3 different types of private type of soldiers that really did what Hitler wanted. So if you would like to learn more information about the Third Reich, we've already done a study on that, and more videos will be coming. So one way that we can actually look into this will be looking at the Hungary area, the Orban era. So that if you wanted to look at the civil service purge risk that we are currently facing, we can look at Hungary, and then at that we can look at the Orban era. So when we talk about religious fusionism, it is both high when we talk about really all of them, except when we talk about all 3 categories, or actually all 3 opponents. The first opponent, Big Beautiful Bill, was high. Project 2025 was high. And third right was a yes. The Volkernich, Skirch alignment. And the similarity that we can look at right now will be Iran and Islamic rule. Could be the present day, I guess you could say it will be the present day example of what we should look at in order to counteract whatever's going on. So whenever someone talks about it's so good that this, we can then, if we were to actually look and see what's going on in their area, we can then use that as an argument. So we are now at the freedom of press threat. Big Beautiful Bill was seen as a 5 out of 5. The Project 2025 was seen at 4 out of 5. Third Right was seen 5 out of 5, and it was a state propaganda. And then we can also look at Russia right now, current day Putin, on the way he operates, and I'll let us know what way we're going. When we talk about corporate empowerment, we're gonna put $5. We get $5 out of $5. The Big Beautiful Bill empowers the corporate entities greatly. Project 2025 was 4 out of 5, and the third right was industrial partnerships. So it really didn't give them money. And right now, Citizen United, I don't get that one. So we're I guess it's saying that it's actually allowing the super rich to actually do what they want, which is not always good. So when we talk about the populist propaganda, The third right and the big beautiful bill, 5 out of 5. And it could be compared to the Volkswagen Schiff. And when we talk about the mandate, it is actually overseeing the mandate because the mandate was 4 out of 5. This can be seen as the MAGA and Brexit slogans. And the last category that we're going to be looking at, comparing them, will be militarization potential. This will be seen as a, I am not exactly sure what those markings mean, but I'm pretty sure that's a 5 out of 5. And then we talk about Project 2025, it was a 3 out of 5. And then when we talk about the third right, it basically said the full paramilitary state. So so I guess it's saying it is a paramilitary state plus 4 out of 5. I'm not exactly sure. And we can definitely say that January 6th insurrection is showing the potential for militarization of these really the MAGA people. So we are then going to talk about the origin story. The big beautiful bill was born from the ashes of the democratic checks and balances, marketed as patriotic and common sense reform. It carries the power to gut entire agencies, replace public services with private cronies, and suppress dissent through executive overreach. Its charm, simplicity, and fear. Its mission, replace service with surveillance and justice with profit. The Easter eggs, hidden references, deconstruction of the administration state, Steve Bannon. Signature quotes echoes Benito Mussolini's corporate statism. If anybody knows about Benito Mussolini, he was a real big threat. He was one of the people who really was riding with Hitler during his time. So by this being a part of the card, that is something serious. Visual homage to Trump's Art of the Deal meets Orwell's 1984. I'm gonna have to create that. You know what? We're gonna create that. So give me a second. All right, let's get back to it. That was a very interesting one. So, counter card options, the resistance cards. These are our heroes. Lady Liberty, defender of civil rights, the regulatory, champion of public accountability, the whistleblower, exposer of corporate overreach, and the unionizer, the protector of the worker class. All right, we need those cards. Government downsizing and privatization measures. So this right here is going to be something that is going to be a part of emillions.org. So if you want to look at the 25 biggest risks that the big beautiful bill have, we're going to come back to it. But if you want to get back to it before, you can then go to emillions.org and then go to Big Beautiful Bill. And as soon as that is up, this right here will be what you will see. And it's going over 25 of them. And I'm just going to say the title of the 25, and you can go and read the rest. One, eliminates or consolidates federal agencies. 2, repeals or weakens the Affordable Care Act. 3, privatizes Medicare through voucher systems. 4, cuts Social Security benefits through restructuring. 5, converts VA healthcare to private sector care. 6, replaces public school funding with school vouchers. 7, privatizes federal housing programs. 8, outsources postal services. 9, privatizes transportation infrastructure. 10, cuts or eliminates funding for public broadcasting. 11, reduces funding for the EPA and deregulates environmental enforcement to states. 12, eliminates climate change research and sustainability programs. 13, reduces food safety inspections and turns them over to private auditors. 14, abolishes the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFBPB. 15, eliminates Department of Labor Enforcement and outsources worker protections. 16, deregulates telecommunications and reduces FCC oversight. 17, ends federal support for disaster relief via FEMA privatization. 18, outsources prison management to private corporations. 19, deregulates and defunds public health programs. 20, cuts funding for public libraries and museums. 21, sells off federal land and natural resources. 22, eliminates or weakens the federal minimum wage. 23, shifts public higher education to workforce training vouchers. 24, uses tax credits instead of direct service funding. 25, limits federal regulatory authority and expands executive control. So, looking at this beautiful bill and the 25 things that it will affect, please go through the beautiful bill on your own and understand that the reason why it is 1,100 pages is because they wish to hide something. Nothing comes in the forms of 11 pages. If you notice, throughout our time of looking at these executive orders, there are they have the abilities to write smaller bills. And the reason why they don't want to do these smaller bill, and the fact that they did it at the dead of night, was a real proof that it had no good intentions involved. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to look at this cover letter simply to let you know where to go. Again, if you are looking for more information, go to For Democracy, the YouTube channel, if you want it in video form. If you want it in written form, video form with some charts and then fact data that was validated, then you can go to emillions.org. Understand that I am trying to really get people to go to Resistance Lab. I am also looking for us to really be the watchdogs to the executive orders that are being used. Of course, a lot of these executive orders have been squatted down in the courts. But if you swing at me, you swung at me. And that attempt means a lot. So I'm one of the people who says, if you try to hit me with a car and you miss, I still want that backside. So let's go ahead and then let's go ahead and continue on. If you like to help out and be help with the sponsorship, go to the link tree for E.Millions Williams. All right. So again, what we highlighted was Executive Order 14290. and it was ending taxpayer subsidization of biased media. Again, we said the key threat was the silence, NPR, lifelines for royal news access. The second thing was politicization bias with no formal definition. The third thing was undermines trust in neutral governance. The fourth thing eliminates media that holds government accountable. The fifth thing was encourage corporate media consolidation. The summary was this executive order uses federal muscle to censor dissent and gut public oversight, making authoritarian control in the language of fairness. The next one was the drug pricing executive order. And this executive order was 14297. It was a superficial relief, real damage to our pricing. The key risk uses trade leverage as political weapon. The next thing will be offers no clear access plan for patients. Third thing, expands unchecked executive agency power. The fourth thing, destabilizes international drug markets. The fifth thing, chills innovation in biotech investments. Summary, a populist veneer over a corrosive policy. Patients are left in the cold while executive overreach grows unchecked. So, who's behind the curtain? The big, beautiful bill, the privatizer, a dangerous symbol of Project 2025's, I will say, a weapon, a mission. Destroy federal services, replace them with private cronies, and suppress the watchdogs of democracy. From slashing Medicare and Social Security to gutting public education, Bill's real game is permanent privatization. So we're going to have to figure out our moves, and we're going to have to figure out how to fight back. But if you want to help out and know the players, know the moves, and how to fight back, go ahead and subscribe to For Democracy, YouTube, explore emillions.org, and support LinkedIn, Linktree, eMillions Williams. So at this point of our episode, we're going to then dive into videos really going over those executive orders being signed, or just anything dealing with those with that content. So give me a sec. I'm not looking to. Okay, that's right. All right, so looking at our executive order watch, let's go ahead and go to the newest. Yeah, we'll go to the newest.
In national headlines, President Donald Trump signed an executive order that aims to end federal funding for PBS and NPR. The White House accuses the two of biased news coverage and argues that taxpayers should not be funding that. But critics say the loss of funding will hurt Americans who rely on public media. National correspondent Janae Bowens has a closer look at the measure.
President Donald Trump signed a controversial executive order on Thursday. It aims to cut money for NPR and PBS.
The American people are sick of funding institutions who promote values that they find repugnant.
The public broadcasters are accused of left-leaning bias. The White House and Republicans say one glaring example was NPR's refusal to cover the Hunter Biden laptop scandal shortly before the 2020 election. At the time, NPR released a statement that said, "We don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories." But it did turn out to be a real story.
Our current editorial leadership believes that that was a mistake, as do I.
Yeah, the whole country knows that was a mistake. Definitely impacted the election.
Critics also point out how drag queens have been featured on PBS children's programming. The executive order directs the Corporation for Public Broadcasting to slash the more than $500 million in federal funding for NPR and PBS. Local stations could be hit the hardest, with some at risk of shutting down altogether. In a statement, NPR said, "We will challenge this executive order using all means available." And PBS said, the president's blatantly unlawful executive order issued in the middle of the night threatens our ability to serve the American public.
We use our broadcast as the emergency backup for emergency alerts for the country, and you need 100% coverage to make that happen.
We have news deserts. 20% of Americans live in a place where they have no local news coverage other than public radio.
The Corporation for Public Broadcasting also released a statement saying the organization is not a federal executive agency subject to the president's authority. It's safe to say this executive order will be challenged in court. In Washington, I'm Janae Bowens reporting.
All right. So when you listen to what they're saying, this is the executive order that we are referring to, I believe 14290. And this executive order is a real big threat to our kids more so than anybody else. And I say that because when we don't have the media really spotlighting, highlighting things, and we're scared, once you get rid of those real big people and those real big bipartisan people, why in the world would you take beef with them not investigating Hunter Biden and harp on it to the point where you want to defund them $500 million? You know, that's outrageous. And you know, the thing about the drag queen is kind of like is targeting the LGBT community. If that's the reason why you want to defund them because you have a drag queen reading, I mean, that right there will be, if that's right there is one reason why I'm saying if we had a Christian only type of regime like the Iranian population has with Islam, at that point anything that is different than the white straight male will be villainized. You know, and I say that because being a lady is you can't be a pastor as a lady in a lot of what the text says. So I'm just saying it's like, and then the way that Trump is going at Chicago and those people who just happen to want to glorify the fact that, hey, we're very diverse and we actually look like the population. And then all of a sudden it's criminal activity and they're saying DEI is evil. So let's go ahead and get to the next video because there's a few videos that we got going on today. All right. This next video is him signing, I believe. So
this brilliant device keeps your home cool in summer, even during heat waves and power outages. It's smaller than a lunchbox. Cool.
In national headlines, President Donald.
And tomorrow morning, President Trump plans to sign an executive order he says will drastically lower drug prices. The order would direct the Department of Health and Human Services to tie what Medicaid pays for medication that are administered in a doctor's office to the lowest price paid by other countries. The most favored nations policy is something the president tried to implement in his first term, but it was blocked by a court order. The plan is expected to face stiff opposition from the pharmaceutical company.
Why doesn't somebody fight the?
Yeah, so the reason why they're opposing is because they know financially it's not possible. It defies money, it defies the economy. Let's move on.
Drug price situation, meaning equalization. There's a term, it's called equalization. Nobody wants to mention that term. And I'm not knocking the drug companies. I'm really more knocking the countries than the drug companies, because they're forced to do things. But the drug lobby is the strongest lobby in this country, they say, the drug lobby. It's between that and lawyers. And they have a lot of power. But starting today, the United States will no longer subsidize the health care of foreign countries, which is what we were doing. We're subsidizing others' health care. Countries where they paid a small fraction of what, for the same drug, that what we pay many, many times more for. And we'll no longer tolerate profiteering and price gouging from Big Pharma. But again, it was really the countries that forced Big Pharma to do things that, frankly, I'm not sure they really felt comfortable doing. But they've gotten away with it, these countries. European Union has been brutal. And the drug companies actually told me stories. It was just brutal how they forced them. And European Union suing all our companies, Apple, Google, Meta. They're suing all of our companies. They end up, they have judges that are European Union-centric.
Check out this screenshot of my credit.
That man don't
Just a few
sound.
months ago, it was in a low.
I mean, it's cool.
That all changed when I found this.
Let's go to the next video.
And they get rewarded 15 billion, 17 billion, 20 billion, and they use that to run their operation. Not going to happen any longer, that I can tell you. So what's been happening is we've been subsidizing other countries throughout the world, not just in Europe, throughout the world. European Union was the most difficult, from what I understand. I mean, I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine who's a businessman, very, very, very top guy. Most of you would have heard of him. A highly neurotic, brilliant businessman, seriously overweight, and he takes the fat shot drug. And he called me up, and he said, President, he calls me, he used to call me Donald, now he calls me President, so that's nice respect. But he's a rough guy, smart guy, very successful, very rich. I wouldn't even know how we would know this, but because he's got comments. President, could I ask you a question? What? I'm in London, and I just paid for this damn fat drug I take. I said, it's not working. He said, I just paid $88. And in New York, I pay $1,300. What the hell is going on? He said, so I checked. And it's the same box, made in the same plant, by the same company. It's the identical pill that I buy in New York. And here I'm paying $88 in London. In New York, I'm paying $1,300. Now, this is a great.
All right, so looking at that, you got his ear, you can get a lot of things done. That's what it sounds like. At the same time, you're really not even taking into consideration a lot of things. So what we're going to do, we're going to conclude today's executive order watch. I hope that you learned something. I made it a point for us to look at both executive orders as far as those videos, so that we know that this is not anybody's figments of anybody's imagination. This is a real threat, and understand that June 14th, 2025, no kings. It is an invitation for everyone to show up on that day. If you have been going to any kind of other weekly demonstration, keep going there. Make it a point to sign up for Resistance Lab, which is done once a month, which is done the first Sunday of the month. Again, if you're going to anything weekly like Tesla takedowns, go ahead and go on those. or 50501 or any of those indivisible activities, make it a point. They have a few indivisible, if you're in a rural area and you would like to participate, Indivisible does have some virtual events that you can attend. And then after that, make it a point again to check out Resistance Lab, which is done every first Sunday. If I was you, I will find your local city hall and go there once a month and voice your concerns to your first offenders. Then write who you feel like you must write about the things that you feel that hits you the most. Make it a point that the people know that you are not well and this is not normal. The more we voice how this is not normal, the better we are. The less that we talk and the more that we bend a knee and we allow it to be the norm, the more it will happen. So I really appreciated your time. This has been a pleasure. Again, this is E.O.W, and this has been For Democracy.
I mean, look, y'all see that they throwing the trash out. They know what's about to happen. What's about to go? Now he ain't put his finger up. He ain't put his finger up. So then he goes outside. And let's see here. That's the end of the video. He walked his ass back in, and right there is when, and then he pushed the brother. He walked his ass back in, and right there is when, and then he pushed the brother, and that's when hashtag team whip that ass made an appearance.
But it is your president, you're going to have to live with it.
We will either renegotiate it or we will break it. Because, you know, every agreement has an end.
You can't just break the law.
Excuse me, every agreement has an end.
Pauline's Pizza, where we deliver happiness one slice at a time. What's your craving today?
Hi, can you tell me about your menu?
Of course. We offer handmade pizzas with different crusts like thin crust, original, or deep dish. We also have fresh salads, pastas, and both bone-in and boneless wings. Would you like to hear about our specialty pies or any current special deals?
Do you have any gluten-free options?
Yes, we do. Our gluten-free crusts are super tasty, but there's a $3 upcharge. Would you like me to go over the options with you?
Great. What's the largest size pizza you offer?
Our largest size is the extra large pizza, perfect for feeding a crowd. Plus, if you upgrade to an extra large, you'll get a free 2-liter soda. How does that sound?
That sounds great. Can I get that gluten-free?
Absolutely. You can get the extra large with a gluten-free crust. What toppings would you like on your pizza?
Do you offer any vegan cheese options?
Yes, we do. Our vegan cheese is delicious and comes with a $3 upcharge. Would you like to add that to your gluten-free pizza?
Yeah.
Great choice. So we've got an extra large gluten-free pizza with vegan cheese. Any other toppings you'd like to add?
Well, one moment. What about hosting an event? Do you have any space for a birthday party?
Yes, we do host parties and offer catering. Let me get your email address so I can send over our catering plans. How many people are you planning to invite?
I left my sunglasses there last week. Can you check if they're still there?
I can definitely check for you. Can you describe the sunglasses for me?
They're black with silver frames.
Thanks for the details. I'll have someone check on that for you. Is there anything else I can help with today?
No, that's all for now. I'll call back later.